Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2022 Mayor's Breakfast. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Margaret Thoreau, the CEO and President of the Batavia Chamber of Commerce. Good morning. I'd like to start by saying thank you to Mayor Schilke for making time for us today and sharing all the exciting news that we have in our future here at Batavia. There's really so much going on. I know this is going to be a very exciting program. Thank you, Mayor. Before we begin, I would like to recognize this morning's overall event sponsor, Northwestern Medicine. Mike Voda is here to talk to us. Mike Voda currently serves as the president of Northwestern Medicine Delnor Hospital. He previously served as senior vice president, administration, and oversaw the human resource division at Northwestern Medicine Healthcare. Before that, he held the position of president, West Region, overseeing the operations of the West Region entities of Northwestern Medicine Healthcare. Prior to the merger of Cadence Health with Northwestern Medicine, in September of 2014, Mr. Voda served as the president and chief executive officer of Cadence Health. Mike Voda earned his bachelor's degree in business from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana and holds a master's of management through the executive MBA program of Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. As you can see, we are fortunate to have Mike lead Delnor into the future and are pleased to have him today. Please welcome Mike Voda up to the podium to give us information about our wonderful local medical facility.
Thank you, Margaret. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate a couple of minutes to give you a little snapshot of Delnor Hospital. We have to thank Delora and Lester Norris in the early 1900s for donating land in St. Charles and a building and some equipment. And the first Delnor Hospital opened in St. Charles in 1940 with 25 beds. Our current campus, right down the road in Geneva, now has 100 acres, 12 different buildings, a hospital that's got 159 beds, considered a medium-sized community hospital. 9,800 people every year get admitted, 39,000 emergency room visits every year, 1,400 births, 7,600 surgeries are performed at Delnor every year, and about 250,000 of you come to the hospital for some outpatient testing or other ancillary services. We employ close to 1,400 staff members. There's about 700 physicians that are on staff, but there's really about 250 that really make the place go. And we have about 160 advanced practice nurses and physician assistants also supporting us. The operating model of Northwestern Medicine is commonly referred to as RREG. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it stands for relationships, reliability, efficiency, and growth. And relationships we take very, very seriously. Our mission statement is basically patients first. And I always twist it and say it's really people first. We have got to create an environment where our staff, our physicians, our volunteers, our community members all really view the teamwork and see it, and it's palpable. So we are constantly talking to patients, volunteers, physicians, our community members. And I'm happy to report Delnor's satisfaction survey results are typically in the top quartile and many times in the top decile. We're quite proud of that. Reliability, our message to you as community members and businesses in Batavia, we want to be the quality provider of choice for you and your families and your businesses and your associates. Our reliability or quality destination, there's a lot of organizations that look at the quality of results, whether it's mortality rates, infection rates, readmission rates, falls, those kinds of things. There's a company called Vizient, it's a healthcare consortium nationwide that looks at over 1,000 quality metrics for every single hospital, and they compare Delnor to like-minded, similarly situated hospitals throughout the nation. And I am proud to tell you that this past year that ended August 31st, Delnor was ranked number 2 out of 121 similarly sized hospitals throughout the nation. Our staff, our physicians are quite proud of that as well. Medicare also rates hospitals. Guess what it's on? A 5-star scale. And Delnor, for 6 consecutive years, has been given a 5-star rating by Medicare as well. And for nurses, many may be in the room, about 8% of the hospitals in America have a designation called Magnet. And it's basically a testament to the culture, the view from above of what nurses mean to an organization. And I always said hospital administrators don't make great hospitals, but physicians and nurses do. So Delnor was one of the first hospitals in Illinois to receive Magnet designation, and we are seeking our 5th Magnet recertification this year. How many of you like the cost of healthcare? It's reasonable, right? It stinks. I've been in this business 40 years. We've been challenged with cost issues all along. So we are constantly looking to be the most efficient hospital around. Doing more with less. You do it all in your businesses. We have to do it at the hospital as well. And I'm also proud to tell you that in terms of a cost per admission, we look at that. Total cost, staff, supplies, drugs, and we compare ourselves to the other 11 Northwestern Medicine hospitals, and Delnor, for the 3rd year in a row, has the lowest cost per admission than any of the other hospitals. So that quality result, combined with an efficiency metric, really bodes well and creates a great foundation for healthcare. And we believe if you spend time on relationships, reliability, and efficiency, you're going to grow. And guess what? We have. This past year, there was a 19% growth in the activity at Delnor Hospital. We are busting at the seams. Unfortunately, we had to go on bypass in our emergency room just last week for a couple of hours because we could not take another patient. Central DuPage Hospital, where I kind of grew up, had available beds, and we asked 6 of our emergency room patients if they were comfortable being transferred to CDH. 5 of the 6 said absolutely not. Delnor's my hospital, we're staying here. So that is a moment of pride for us as well. We, at our core, are a not-for-profit community asset. We're owned by you. Any profits that we actually generate get re-energized into our staff, facilities, and programs. All you have to do is pick up any newspaper or read any article that says healthcare is under siege today. Most well-established health systems are bleeding ready. Northwestern Medicine is not. Last year, as a system, we generated a 3% operating margin. Delnor achieved an 11% operating margin. And we don't get to distribute to shareholders because we don't want to. We take those funds and reinvest in various programs, facilities, and our staff. 2 such investments, the Cancer Center. When Delnor merged with CDH and created Cadence, there was an independent or a freestanding cancer center built on the campus of Delnor. It opened in 2015, really just 7 years ago. And if you drive by Delnor, you don't know what's going on. We're building a lake, it looks like, out there. We had to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to move the lake because we are doubling the size of that cancer center with a $22 million investment. It'll open up in the spring of 2024. Sadly, the community needs more access to cancer care. On a positive note, we're able to respond. So that is an exciting investment. Surgical services. We just finished a year ago a $40 million investment in modernization of our surgical suite. And in this first year after doing that, our surgery volume is up 25%. So this message is we have got to continue to be efficient, to generate funds, to reinvest in programs and facilities that will benefit you all. We are not without our challenges. Our biggest challenge, and I'm probably singing to the choir to the business leaders here, it is difficult to recruit and retain staff in healthcare. We are a 24/7 operation. Our staff has COVID fatigue. The number of patients and visitors that are disruptive and actually violent in our facilities is on the rise. People present with medical and surgical issues, but it's complicated with a significant staggering increase in mental health issues that make it more and more challenging. The number of nurses and other healthcare givers that have given up on healthcare, they're going to work in non-healthcare environments, they're retiring early. It is amazing. We have 152 open positions, and that's about 10% of our workforce. And with those open positions, we end up paying tons of money for overtime and temporary staff, and that's not what we want. And there's no magic bullet. This is not just throw money at them, but we do, in fact, are getting more aggressive on our pay practices. We're creating flexible work schedules. We're doing more around benefits. We just raised the tuition reimbursement benefit from $5,000 per year to $10,000 per year. Folks are responding. This idea is we need a culture of people first. We've got to demonstrate to our workforce that this is a great place to work. And so far, I've only been at Delnor since September 6th in this role, but it is a second family. And so, in closing, Delnor wants to earn your respect and confidence as the hospital of choice for the residents of Batavia and the businesses of Batavia as well. And I'm happy to continue this conversation, so I think you've got my cell phone. If not, contact the hospital directly, and I'm happy to talk to anybody further. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's so great how you invest in our community, and those are wonderful statistics that you're caring for us. We appreciate Delnor's presence and Northwestern Medicine's care. Northwestern Medicine is a Chairman Circle member with the Batavia Chamber of Commerce. They invest in the Chamber at the highest level to demonstrate support for our community. In addition to Northwestern Medicine, we have Covenant Living at the Homestead, Patriot Heating and Cooling, George F. Law Center, BEI Commercial Real Estate, D&M Home Improvements, Crosstown Pub, D-Wing Construction, and Techmer PM. These are our Chairman Circle members, so please support their businesses. I'd also like to thank all of our sponsors at today's event. In addition to Northwestern Medicine, we have Drendel and Jansen's Law Group, the City of Batavia, and Wabansie Community College. Their investment in the Chamber is greatly valued, and we sincerely appreciate their support. I'd like to thank the Homestead for hosting us this morning. Thank you for the use of the auditorium and for catering our breakfast. A big thank you to Julio Macias, the Executive Director of the Homestead, and Amanda Slayer, the Director of Philanthropy. She does that to trip me up. Thank you to Andrew Van Meter and BATV for recording today's event. The program will be on BATV's channel that you watch later this week or next week. I would like to give a special recognition to the Chamber's Board of Directors. Please stand when I say your name. Jamie Sam, Bulldog Plumbing and Start Something Studios. Jen Brenz, Transformative Growth. Amanda Slayer, The Homestead. Nathan Galliard, Edward Jones. Christopher Rooney, Waste Management. Phil Bukowski, First Centennial Mortgage. Donna Bucko, Swatek Bucko Law Group. Sam Bell, Clean Pest Solutions. Kelly Desmond, Wilson Street Mercantile. Lisa Hitchens, Batavia Public Schools. Allison Niamella, Batavia Park District. And Laura Newman, City of Batavia. Thank you for all your time and expertise. I want to recognize our Chamber ambassadors, our members that represent us to the community and assist us in our mission. Kathy Barkay, Fox Valley Real Estate. Mike Burke, Batavia Parks Foundation. George Gladys, Folkman Insurance. Carrie Hosel, Hosel Homes, Keller Williams. Phil Bukowski, First Centennial Mortgage. Kevin Laurie, Country Financial. Anita Malik, National Energy Contractors. Laura Matter, Reading Matters. Jessica McGrail, Dollar and Cents Bookkeeping. Maria Ramirez, AAA Tree Service. Jamie Sam, Bulldog Plumbing and Start Something Studios, Michael Schultz, Spirit Rising Coaching, and Jennifer Zach, Welcome Home Batavia. Both the board and ambassadors give their tremendous support to the Chamber, and I want to thank these individuals for their dedication and the future of business in Batavia. Now please help me recognize my partners at the Batavia Chamber, Shirley Mott, our Membership and Communications Coordinator, and Patty Anselmi, our Special Events Coordinator. They work so hard to make everything run so smoothly. Thank you guys for all you do. Amazing. We have many esteemed representatives in attendance, and I would like to give a quick shout out and a special thank you and would like to mention them. Please hold all applause to the end. City councilmen and staff representing the City of Batavia, including Laura Newman, the City Administrator, Fire Chief Craig Hansen, and Police Chief Sean Mazza. Board members and staff of the Batavia Township, led by Lee Tracy, Batavia Township Supervisor. Board members and staff of the Batavia Public Schools, led by Superintendent of the Schools, Dr. Lisa Hitchens. Board members and staff of the Batavia Park District, led by Allison Niamella, Executive Director, and Patrick Callahan, the Board President. Board members and staff of the Batavia Public Library District, led by George Sheets, Executive Director, and Daniel Russo, Board President. Board members and staff of the Batavia Main Street, led by Beth Walker, Executive Director. State Senator Linda Holmes is here today, and Kane County Board Member Dave Brown. Thanks for joining us. Since its formation in 1953, the Batavia Chamber of Commerce has been a source of community information and an advocate for business. The Batavia Chamber has been a convener of leaders and influencers and the voice of business, interests, and success. I'm pleased to share that next year will be the Batavia Chamber's 70th Jubilee anniversary. We will be celebrating this anniversary all year long, so please stay informed and look at the Batavia Chamber calendar in the upcoming year. Follow us on social media and read Monday's weekly digest newsletter. I want to remind you that the Chamber is accepting nominations for the 2022 Citizen of the Year through next Friday, November 11th. The Citizen of the Year award is given to someone who lives in or owns a business in Batavia whose service and dedication have made a significant contribution to the community. Take a moment to consider all the individuals that have made positive impacts on our community and submit your nominations letters to me at the Chamber. We will announce the winner in December and honor the winner at our annual Inspire celebration in April of 2023. One other new initiative I want to mention before I introduce our guest speaker. I'd like to share a new program the Batavia Chamber has recently announced. The Chamber is organizing the production of a Batavia community flag. The past several years have certainly put a spotlight on our unique sense of community here in Batavia. We know our residents would like to display their civic pride. The community will excitedly determine the flag's design. If you are a Batavia resident, submit your design to the Chamber by March 1st, 2023. The flag source, the flag manufacturer in Batavia, will produce the flag and make 3x5 and garden-sized flags available on Flag Day, June 14th. The contest is open to all residents, and residents and businesses will be able to proudly display their Batavia commitment. If you'd like to see more details on our website, and we have flyers at the registration table. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our featured guest. Mayor Jeffrey Shockey has been mayor for 41 years, beginning in 1981, and is currently in his 11th term. He's the longest serving mayor in Kane County history, the second longest mayor in Illinois, and the 11th longest serving mayor out of 1,400 mayors in the United States. His commitment to our town and positive impact on the surrounding area are immeasurable. Mayor is always there to support the Chamber at all of our local ribbon cuttings as the fabulous MC of ceremonies. 18 ribbon cuttings this year alone. Mayor Shockey was honored as the 2004 recipient of the Citizen of the Year Award and I am honored to welcome Honorable Mayor Jeffrey D. Schilke.
Well, you've just all been subjected to my community history of how long I've been around. As I figure it, I think this is the 38th year that I've given this program or this update to the Chamber of Commerce group. The late Donna Dallasassi, who was the executive director of the Chamber for a number of years, kind of came up with the idea. And as I remember, the first time we did it, we had maybe 30 people there. And it's grown a little bit since then. I will tell you that in 38 years of doing this, I don't think I've ever had as many new businesses come into this town as we have had in the past year and are on the doorstep now telling us that they're coming in. So we've got a real business boom going here, unlike anything we've ever quite seen before. And during this little program, I'm going to share with you some of the numbers that Batavia has kind of awaiting its future. You got the slides on?
Do you want to take your act on the road?
No, I'm just going to stand right here. You're going to stand here with me and push button?
Well, that's what you want.
So you don't have to look at me, and we're going to go forward, but I wanted to start with this particular one because it gives, I think, a very nice picture of downtown Batavia, and specifically highlights the Peace on Earth Bridge, which we now have a group that Britta McKenna is heading up that is trying to do some further enhancements to the bridge, including put lighting on it so it'll be available year-round. And certainly with the support of the Batavia Park District, I think we're going to do some neat things with this. And this has become something that a lot of people ask about and say, where did it come from? And there's a long story behind it that I'm not going to get into. But the nice part about it is that when it was put in place, it really didn't cost Batavia anything because we had a number of favors that we had to be repaid to us and whatever have you. So IDOT paid for the bridge to be put up, or provided the funding to put the bridge up. So that was a good thing, and it's not on the backs of the Batavia taxpayers that they paid for this bridge. But anyway, let's go to the next slide. All right, I throw this one in here because I was the photographer who took this picture, and this was taken, I believe, 50 years ago. Those of you who are old-timers will remember that back in the 1970s, I worked as a reporter and photographer for the old Batavia Herald newspaper. And one of the things I got assigned to do, I believe it was in 1973, was to come up to this location, which was then basically an abandoned area that had been a Jewish tuberculosis sanitarium. And they were going to tear some of the buildings down, but they had a groundbreaking for the homestead. And this was the groundbreaking ceremony. And sometimes you went to groundbreakings and they had alcohol. Well, the folks who opened up the homestead did not believe in alcohol, so they had an ice cream program that they gave when they broke the ground. And in this picture, the gentleman that's standing at the forefront here, his name is Paul Brandell. And he was kind of the driver of the homestead when it first came in here, and was the one that made all the decisions. Standing in the middle is Mr. Michelson, who was later a very active participant in this facility. And we have a building, part of the nursing home portion of this facility is named after Brandell. And the third person standing there is the then Batavia Mayor, Robert Brown, who was mayor for 8 years from 1969 to 1977. And it fell to him to be the guy that kind of set the stage for this thing to be built. And there was another alderman on the city council by the name of James Hansen, who I believe later lived here. But anyway, Mayor Brown and Mr. Hansen were the drivers of it. And as the reporter who was sitting in the room when the discussions were going on about taking this 40 acres up here and turning this into the homestead, there was a lot of community question to begin with, but it quickly went away. And I will remember a couple of things that happened. One was Mr. Hanson and Mayor Brown raised the issue there was no sidewalk leading to this facility. And so right away, Mr. Brandel said, well, tell me where you want the sidewalk and I'll pay for it and build it. So he built the sidewalk from Illinois Avenue all the way to Fabian Parkway right in front of the homestead. So that was a nice thing. And then the one that was very somewhat controversial was the fact that the fire department wanted these buildings to be sprinklered. And that was not a real popular thing at that time, but if you look into the ceilings here, you will see the sprinkler heads buried in the ceiling, but this whole facility ended up being sprinklered and became kind of a model for the rest of the region for specifically senior living facilities needed to be sprinklered. And I will tell you, 50 years later, the Batavia Fire Department has responded into this complex on a couple of occasions when there was a fire going. And in each and every one of those occasions, the sprinkler system stopped the fire dead in its tracks. So I think those are moments of history that I think we should take with great pride because they illustrate what government can do working together with folks. But the whole homestead arrival and its life in Batavia has been kind of a community model that we are all very proud of. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now I'm going to share with you some numbers of what's happening in Batavia today. This is Batavia Commons, which is over on the east side. It's at the intersection of Kirk Road and Wind Energy Pass. And right behind it is the campus of the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory. This complex was approved to have 242 attached living units in it, along with an 18-acre commercial area, which is out in the front of it, which hasn't been yet built upon, but I'm here to tell you that this past week, the Batavia Building Department just issued the last building permit for the last 242nd unit of this complex to be built. And so this is going to be a fairly large complex with a large number of people in it. And right behind it, as I say, is Fermilab, and there was some really big news came out of Fermilab earlier the year when the White House announced it was going to provide the funding to build the neutron accelerator. So Fermilab now is going to have the new accelerator under construction. And the first one that we built is now well over 50 years of age. It was announced it was coming to Batavia December 16th, 1966. And it's been there. Imagine what Batavia would be like today had that not occurred. That 6,800 acres, which is what Fermilab is, would be just, I'm sure, one massive solid urbanization out there. And we'd have 2 or 3 Batavia high schools instead of just the one that we now have. But you really had some big pressure on us had that not been put there. We would have been, we're right next, it joins Naperville on the east, so it would have been an easy idea of what would have spread in there. So Batavia is, I think very, very fortunate that all these things happen. One thing I do want to make mention of, as I talked about that last picture, with Mayor Brown in there, as I say, he was the one that got a lot of the good ideas going. And I'll be talking about this a little bit later, but as life in Batavia proceeds, Mayor Brown's son, David, is now a member of the Kane County Board representing Batavia. And he's very active in a conversation that I'll talk about in a couple minutes about rebuilding the intersection down here at Route 31 in Fabian Parkway because it's a bad intersection. It's got a bad design to it. So the Kane County Board I talked to them just yesterday to confirm what I was going to tell you, and they are actively working on it. This is something, I'm not trying to pass the buck here, but that's an intersection that has no city control to it. It's either the Illinois Department of Transportation, who has Route 31 or Batavia Avenue, or Fabian Parkway, which is under the control of the Kane County Board. So those two entities have to come together, and they are now doing the planning and the design, and are trying to get together the rebuild of that intersection. So let's go to the next slide. These are a couple of other new things that are happening in Batavia. As you're looking at it on the left, is the the landings, which is just being occupied now out on Fabian Parkway, that'll have 144 living units in it. And then to the right here, as you're looking at it, is Winding Creek subdivision, which has approved 163 single-family homes. So if you take all these numbers together and add them up, 242 at the east side, 163 at the Winding Creek, which is just off of McKee Street behind Kohl's, and 144 at the landings. That's over 500 new living units that are either are in Batavia already or are coming in the very near future. So we do have a major influx of living units. Now, what this is going to do is obviously it's going to add to our population. And we, like several other communities around here, have a lot of questions about what happened in the 2020 census. Because in the 2020 census, within the 10 years between 2010, when we got originally to 26,000, and 2020, they're trying to tell us that Batavia grew 84 people. Now, that's after we had built the last section of the Tanglewood subdivision, and that had 55 units in it, of which they're all occupied. And there's many of them have 2, 3, 4, 5 people living in it. So that by itself is more than 84 people. And we can't find any empty houses or any empty places anyplace. So we think there was some mix-up in Batavia's count. And so we are being told that we have to wait till the last quarter of 2023, at which time we then, the city, can pay for a special census to be done. And we've been talking with the city council, and right now we're in the process of preparing the 2023 budget. And the staff and myself are recommending that at the end of 2023, we go to that special census and recount the town, because I think over on the Batavia Commons on the east side will make up for the cost of it by itself, just by the number of people that will be living in there. So we're very optimistic that Batavia's on a real growth trend, and when you start seeing all these things popping up, we're going to have some interesting things for Batavia to have to deal with, and it will create a bigger economy and everything else for the community. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this was a kind of a unique experience that we had. We had an old water tower that was on West Wilson Street, just to the west of the high school, that we didn't need anymore. So we removed the water tower, and we put the property up for sale. And the opportunity came that we could sell the water tower site to Habitat for Humanity, which produces lower income housing. Now, we got into this and looked this over pretty closely, and this turned out to be a very good thing. You just don't go in here and they give you a house. You have to be a buyer of the house from Habitat for Humanity. You have to come yourself and do some of the work on the house while it's being worked on. And then you have a mortgage that you're paying to be able to live there. And they price them very nicely, but we were able to cut out on that water tower site 4 single-family home lots that are now totally built, and we have 4 very nice families living in there. So this has been a very successful operation. I think Batavia should keep its eyes open for some more opportunities to let Habitat for Humanity come in, because everybody wants to see some nicer priced, lower priced housing, but you got to be careful what you get yourself into with that. And we want to make sure that we're running it the right way, and somebody isn't trying to take advantage of these folks. And this is what I think we got with Habitat for Humanity, is we got some folks that really want to make this program work, and so it's been a very good program for us. Go to the next picture. Okay, it's another one of our aerial shots showing downtown Batavia, and I will just want to share with you a bit of political history. This area, this is where the Peg Bond Center is. It's right there north of Houston Street, next to the City Hall. When Mayor Brown, Dave Brown's father, was then the mayor, the city of Batavia came forward under his leadership, and they bought what was then the Dunbar campus down at on this particular piece of property. And one of the things they were able to buy and then immediately resell to the Batavia Park District was 15 acres of the site was the area where the Depot Pond now is located. And needless to say, that's become one of the community focal points, along with the Peace Bridge. And if you go down there on prom night or when somebody's getting married or somebody's having their 75th wedding anniversary, everybody's standing down there at the pond having their pictures taken. So it's become quite the site for things like that to happen, and I'm very pleased that it's happened right in the downtown. But I want to tell you, when Mayor Brown proposed this thing, and there was several others, Peg Bond being one of them, she was at that time a professor at Northern Illinois University in the School of Art, but she was also the chairman of the Batavia Plan Commission. She and Mayor Brown and a couple others, it was hellfire and damnation. There was huge community opposition to the idea. You're going to ruin the downtown. Nobody's ever going to go down there. The place smells. It looks like a dump. I will tell you, having graduated from Batavia High School, I put together a little program about Batavia High School in the 1960s. But now I'm invited to every high school class reunion during that time period, which are now most of them 50 years plus, and they want me to come and show this program of all the old teachers and what the school looked like. And it was right in the transition period when the old school was made into the junior high and the new school was originally built out on West Main Street. And every time I give this program, people will say to me, "Jeff, I don't know what happened here, but this area downtown looked like a dump when I went to school here." And now look at it, you've made it into a park and you've got all these people down here celebrating. So I don't really deserve any of the credit for that, but certainly Mayor Brown, Peg Bond, Phil Elstrom, Jim Hansen, there was a number of people who got their political shorts cut off over this whole thing because people did not like the idea. And another one that people thought was terrible was building the River Rain senior citizen high-rise down there. And there was a pastor at the Bethany Lutheran Church by the name of Keith Nelson that came down one night. I was not the mayor again. He engaged the city council and the mayor at that time in a really powerful debate about why they should build that there. And at the end of the day, it finally got approved after I was mayor, but we got the thing up. And I sit here now, 40 years later, and look at all the old-time Batavia people who have been able to move into that complex and live out their life in security and dignity and help make that the nice area it is down there. And I say to myself, where would all these people have gone had we not done this? So there's a lot of vision, and I wanted to take a moment or two to pay some tribute to some of those who really did step forward and took some real political fire about it, because there was a lot of people who said, oh, this is the worst possible thing you could do, don't do it, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to the next picture. Okay, another thing that we've been able to do is we bought the Marston and Becker property up on North River Street. It just worked out that we had some available extra money and we were able to buy it, and we got some property there that I think at some future date the city's going to be able to sell probably the river frontage for some nice redevelopment there that'll add to the tax base. But we use the street and the parking lot now for the Saturday morning farmers market. And that has become extremely very popular, and we get people coming from all over, and many of the vendors are coming in from 2 or 3 counties away to sell their apples or pears or whatever, eggs or whatever they're selling. And we get vast crowds for this, so this has turned out to be a real good thing. Next picture. Okay, now we're getting into the meat of what I'm here to talk about today. And that is all these new businesses that suddenly have found downtown Batavia and moved in. And one of them is the Mercantile, Batavia, Wilson Street Mercantile, which is owned by the Marconi family. When I was a kid, this was the East Side Funeral Home. This was the Crane Funeral Home, and this was where a lot of the funerals in Batavia were held out of. And then it was bought, and the building kind of sat there in kind of stagnant condition for a few years. And now it's been converted into this mercantile facility, and now we've got 4 very nice businesses in there, and they play right into other things that are happening. So let's go to the next slide. And then down the street, right down the next block, we have the Batavia Boardwalk Shops. And that was largely an idea that there's several in this room, and I don't want to start naming them because I'll forget one. But there was several members of the city council and other people from the Chamber of Commerce and the business community, and along with the Batavia High School Manual Arts Department, went down and provided basically the materials and the design, and the kids at the high school built some of the walls and everything else that were moved in there and built these buildings. So this truly was a community project. Now I have mayors from all over the area wanting me to entertain them in Batavia and walk them through this idea. I just had the mayor from Algonquin down, and she was all excited about it. I think Algonquin's getting one of these now because of what she saw in Batavia. So there's a lot of stuff that is happening here that other people are stealing the ideas. Okay, next slide. All right, this is kind of an interesting slide for me to make. This is a Batavia history lesson. And first I want to pay tribute to the Comedy Vault, which is in the old Batavia National Bank that was down there at the corner of River and Wilson for many, 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 many years. Now, it's now a comedy vault. There's great comedy being offered, and you get out there on Friday and Saturday night, and there's lines that go around the street and down River Street, and people waiting to get in for comedy. But what I wanted to share was with this picture of this gun. Now, this gun is one of 6 that was bought in 1927 by the merchants in downtown Batavia, because there had been the announcement that John Dillinger had escaped from jail or whatever he had done, and he was holding up small town banks. And there was a great fear. Supposedly he would research the town before he held the bank up, and he would find out that there was no more than 1 or 2 policemen on duty. And so Batavia had that exact same situation going in 1927-28. They had maybe 1 policeman on duty, and they were afraid that Dillinger was coming to Batavia and he was going to hold the bank up. So they went to the surrounding merchants, and they offered all the surrounding merchants a real great deal if they would buy a gun for themselves, so that if Dillinger ever showed up, these merchants on the other 3 corners of our 2 banks at River and Wilson and over at Island and Wilson, if they would they had one at the post office, one at the body company, one at the savings loan across the street over on the west side, and over on the east side. This particular gun that you see was bought by my grandfather, who ran the grocery store at the corner of River and Wilson where today the Boardwalk Shops are. And he had this gun in there for many years, and after he died, my uncle ran the store, tried to for a few years, and then he gave it up. And at the end of the day, I inherited everything that was in that store, including this gun. And I'm not a gun man, so one day the Batavia police and myself took this gun, and we went up to the police rifle range, and we were going to see how this gun would react. And so a couple of our police officers who were really into training, they get this gun out and they put the bullets into it. And this thing, you can't tell it, but the barrel of this gun has been cut off. So that when you pull the trigger, it's only instantly this bullet comes out, and it's got all these hundreds of fragments in it. And so it creates this big wall of ammunition flying in anybody's way. And as the police said at the time, goodness gracious, if we'd ever had Dillinger ever shown up, we would have killed everybody on the street. If all these merchants had run out and started shooting this gun. So we had one of the officers in town was pretty much of an expert on guns, so he gets out his measuring stick and he measures this. He says, this gun is 3 inches short of being what it should be under law. He says, these people didn't care. They just wanted to kill Dillinger. They were probably going to kill each other if Dillinger never. Fortunately, Dillinger never came. But this is one of the, up till now, never told before Batavia history stories. We had the place packed with guns in the 1920s waiting for Dillinger to show up. Next slide. All right, we now have some new businesses that are in our downtown, and Mirror's Small Plates is right on the corner at River and Wilson. And then we have other things that are popping now. I'm a little bit afraid of doing all this because I'm thinking that I didn't get them all maybe, or I forgot a business, so I apologize if I don't mention you. But we got, a lot of this is all brand new stuff that's just rolling into Batavia. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, then as you go up River Street, we got Sidecar, and we've got John Hamill has returned to his former location, and I guess expanded a little bit, and Tea Tree is there. So we've got some pretty interesting businesses on North River Street. And as you know, we keep the street shut down most of the year, and we have a lot of parties and celebrations there, and this has become a very popular feature in downtown Batavia. But I think one of the things I'm most proud about this idea is that we've been able to hold on to and restore and retrofit many of these old business buildings in downtown Batavia, most of which are well over 100 years of age. And we've got kind of a historic thing going along with a new retail thing going. And again, as I say, I've had several mayors want to come out and see this, how we're doing this, because we seem to be becoming kind of the regional model as to what you do with an old downtown. Next picture. So this is the, I guess we call it the Sturdy Shelter Brewery on South Shumway Avenue. Now, if you're an old-time Batavian, and as I look around this room, there aren't many of you in here that I can remember this, because I've lived here all my life, but this used to be the downtown movie theater. And this is where people walked at night to go down and see Amos and Andy. And I remember the last movie that was ever shown at this theater was in like 1956, and it was Bad Day at Black Rock. And I think maybe Spencer Tracy was in that movie. But there was a lot of the famous movies of the day were all shown in this movie theater. And then, for whatever reason, I was told that they went out of business because there wasn't enough parking, and people then wanted to have a parking lot at the movie theater where you could pull in and whatever. So the movie theater went out, and later became a building where a group of folks were in there restoring various cameras and radios and TVs that were broke and whatever. So the building became a pack full of mechanical parts. And those had to be dealt with when the building was finally sold. But now it's been turned into this brewery, and it's very popular. And I'm thinking that Batavia's been very fortunate to have this arrive in town. The couple that own it live in, I believe, St. Charles or Geneva. And they've spent a lot of money and time really bringing this place up. So again, it's another new face in downtown Batavia. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this was the old Oak and Swine. Originally was that the name of the restaurant that was there. That went out of business a couple months back, and this is about to open up as a new restaurant called The Goat. And The Goat is owned by some of the gentlemen that own some of the more popular similar restaurants up in Geneva. I don't want to start naming them, but if you go up by the Geneva train station, they are the owners of some of those very popular restaurants that are there. And so they're telling me they're going to bring the same recipes down to Batavia, and it's going to be a lot of hamburgers to their specialized recipe that they're going to make there. So it's not open yet, but it's coming. Let's go to the next one. And this for many, many years was a doctor's office. Dr. O'Dwyer and Dr. Slotowitz were in there. And then eventually it was bought by an attorney who made it into a law office, and most recently it's been converted into Haley B's Bakery. And this is a very popular kind of specialty bakery that we got in downtown Batavia, and we have a lot of people coming from other towns to come in and buy the stuff that's being made there. So again, we got some unique things going. Next picture. All right, this is over on right off on the west bank of the river. This is the Red Hive, and I'm showing this, now they've been there for a couple of years, but I'm showing this slide because Bridget and Tom, who run the place, own the place, have now doubled its size. And so now it's twice as big as it was originally, and they have a lot of innovative vendors in there with them, and there's a lot of creative art and different things, antiques and whatever that are being sold there. So again, they're popular enough, they've been featured on WGN TV now with interviews about things that are going on in this store. So again, this is a kind of a new face of downtown Batavia, and we're very, very fortunate that we have these folks coming to our town. I've known these two people for a long time. Bridget and I were in school together down at Aurora University more years ago than I care to remember. And I can remember Tom when he was almost a little kid. And he's been a fire guy all of his life. And I can remember going to a fire in Chicago and this little kid standing next to me, and he had the Evergreen Park Fire Cadet suit on. And it was Tom Freeman. So I've had connections with these folks all a long time, and they're great people, so they're a great addition to Batavia. Next slide. All right. Okay, this is a picture showing of now it's a vacant area at the moment. It's on South Shumway Avenue, and it's the site of the Shumway, was the site of the Shumway Foundry, which was there for, I believe it was 105 years, that was owned by the Shumway family. And this has a very unique story to it. This past year, and next year I'll be able to talk about this, we got a grant from the Dunham Foundation in Aurora for $75,000 to do a historic sign program for downtown Batavia. And we got the locations to do this historic signs. And one of the locations that's going to have a sign on it is this particular location, which is now owned by Batavia Enterprises. And they have grand plans to rebuild it nice, probably some condo buildings, maybe some retail. I'm not sure if they know for sure what they're doing, but they are going to do something there with it. But anyway, we're going to have this sign up, and the sign is going to say that for about a 30-year period, the molds that are used to make the Academy Award were made at the Shumway Foundry in Batavia. And the mold, as I understand it, the Shumways made the mold, and then they shipped the mold to another foundry up in Crystal Lake, who then poured the Academy Award stuff inside the mold and made the Academy Award, and then they had to break the mold off the Academy Award so they could have, so there are no molds left unless maybe they had an extra one. I don't know where that would be, but anyway, they were the makers of the Academy Award in Batavia for about a 30-year period. And the Shumway family, who I've known all my life, tells me the story that when they were making these, they had to kind of really put double locks on the doors and were very, very secretive about what they were doing there, because there was a lot of concern that somebody would try to break in there in the middle of the night and steal the molds from them for the Academy Awards, because they were quite the interesting thing. The other interesting part about downtown Batavia, Shumway Avenue changes its name to Island Avenue when you go north on it one block and you get to the City Hall building. And at the City Hall building, the room in the City Hall that's now used as our City Council chambers, in the late 1960s was occupied by a company by the name of DK Aerospace. And they made components for the early space industry. And so it has been documented and recorded that the fuel lines that were used in the rocket that landed on the moon in 1969 were made in our City Council chambers. So we've got that and the Academy Award at the other end of the street. So we've got some really great signs that we're going to be putting up, and once we get the signs up, the grant calls for us to create a computer view of it so people all around the world can sit in their home and look at this thing that we've got in Batavia, because we got Mary Todd Lincoln down at Bellevue, and we've got some other stuff that's pretty interesting from a national perspective, and it's all right in downtown Batavia. Next slide. Okay, I'm up on Batavia Avenue, and we've got some new occupants up there. J.D. Carlos got their expanding of their hairdressing facility, and then we got the Wolf Wash, and then we've got up, let's go to the next slide. Oh, no, wait, go back. Yeah, we got the new Moon Vegan is coming, they're still under construction up there, but that's gonna, I guess, gonna be kind of a restaurant. And interestingly, I gotta go back after I get done with you, and I guess today I'm having another meeting with some folks that wanna put yet another restaurant in downtown Batavia that we haven't even, I can't even tell you their name or what the restaurant is, but we got lots of people wanting to do restaurants in Batavia. Next slide. Okay, one of the more interesting new restaurants that we're getting, and these folks have been in to see me, and they are in there now. They bought the old Hot Pan restaurant on the east, or West Wilson Street Hill, next to Olmsted's TV. And they are going to be moving in. They already have, I think, 2 other restaurants by this name, and they have one over in Naperville on Jefferson Street. And the name of the restaurant is Everdine, and they have a specialty in their restaurant is that they make grilled cheese sandwiches. And they tell me they have different flavors of cheese, and they put these on this bread, and then they say, do you want bacon or ham or whatever? And then they put that on, and then they put it in some kind of a cooker for a few seconds, and then they give you this cheese sandwich, which they tell me at I talked to the folks, I know several of the folks at the city of Naperville very well. They're telling me this is one of the hottest restaurants they got in their downtown. There's not a lot of places to park right nearby it, but people are parking 2-3 blocks away to walk over to get these cheese sandwiches. And so right now they're in the building and they're tearing it apart. They said this place inside needs a lot of work. They're not anticipating they're going to be open until next spring, but they are doing some work, and I know our city building department's been in there with them to some great degree. Next slide. Okay, up on Batavia Avenue, the old Chase Bank has been bought by Mill Creek Child Care Center. And they have, as you've seen, they took the drive-through window and made that into a playground with a fence around it. And they're getting, I think they're, I don't know if they're moving in quite yet, but they're getting ready to do quite a bit of activity there. So that one will probably see quite a bit of traffic around it. Let's go to the next one. Another place was the old Batavia Library. It's now been made into specialty stores, and one of them that's now in there is Bocadillos, which originally started over on the East Wilson Street Hill, but now they've added an outside patio, and so they're rolling in business out there. So we can call them another one of our newer restaurants. Let's go to the next slide. Then on the West Wilson Street Hill, we've got the can't read the name. So yeah, Farm Dog Flowers and Pretty Prices, Pages, and Mojo's. And they all have specialty, basically art things that they're working on. And some very unique products in there. So I don't want to get into, because I couldn't name them all, but there's a lot of people coming from other towns to go to those 3 businesses. So again, if you haven't been there, stop in, because it is a kind of a show place in Batavia now. Next picture. Okay, then we had the old Art Van Furniture Store out on Randall Road at McKee Street, was standing empty for a while. Now Slumberland has moved in there, and they deal with all products that deal with your sleep. From the mattress to the pillows, to the bedspreads, to the pajamas, to the whole 9 yards. And I will say that they had a very nice ribbon cutting a few weeks back. They asked me to come out to it. And I get there, and there's a couple big trucks sitting there, and in these trucks were 44 mattresses that on the day of their ribbon cutting, they donated these mattresses to some of the homes that take people in that don't have any place else to sleep at night. So they donated 44 new mattresses to, a couple of folks in St. Charles and a couple in Aurora, and they shipped them away in the trucks. So that was very, very nice to do that. And so they're open and seem to be doing well from everything I can see. Go to the next picture. All right, then again, moving out under Randall Road, this is the new warehouse that they have at Menards. And Menards' idea, when we first met with them, they came in and said they really liked Batavia because our municipal zoning ordinance would allow them to sell almost anything they wanted to sell. And they weren't selling everything at that point, but I said, what do you mean? They said, now this is back in 1995 maybe. They said, we're looking for the day when someday we'll be selling clothing, we'll be selling toys, we'll be selling greeting cards, we'll be selling books, we'll be selling, and if you go out there today, they're selling all that plus more. And so one of the things that was with this idea of building this new warehouse outside was they could then take the entire inside of the original store, which I believe was over 160,000 square feet, and put a mezzanine in it and everything else, so they got all this, they're selling it all out there, and they seem to be doing a really great business, and their sales tax is phenomenal, so. Next thing. Okay, this is going to be one of the big hot topics of discussion in Batavia, I'm sure in the coming year. This is the old Randall 15 movie theater, which has been bought by a movie company from Troy, Michigan. And right at the moment, if you look at this slide here on the right, they've tore off the entire back end of the building with the approval of the city, and they are about to begin construction of an addition onto the back of the movie theater, which they tell us will make this the largest movie screen in the state of Illinois. It will be the biggest one out there for the moment, and they're going to have this thing out there, but they're thinking that it's going to be late spring before they get this thing ready, because there's a lot of work. But they've gone inside and they've gutted out the original. They tell me that right now there's not 15 different movies that Hollywood was releasing to show. A lot of Hollywood movies now get immediately sold to TV because they can ding you on them by putting them on channels that you have to pay to watch, and then the movie gets their money back that way. But they are going to take part of the movie. Let's go to the next slide. This is what the interior of the new movie theater is going to look like, the movie theater. And this is going to have these benches, and as they say, they got these cuddle seats where couples cuddle together and watch the movie, and all these other good stuff. But more interestingly, they're taking some of the old movie theaters and they're making them into party rooms. And so if you want to have a graduation party or a 75th wedding anniversary party or whatever it is you want to do, they're going to have these rooms ready, and they'll have kitchens and everything else that they can let you use. And they say they're doing this in other places. And then if you want to have somebody's, say, 80th birthday party, they're going to keep the screen up on one of the walls, and then they ask you to bring in all that person's pictures, and then they make a CD, and then while the party's going on, they put it on the screen, and here's everybody's picture when they were born, when they were a little kid, and they just replay that through your whole party, and you can sit there and look at that or talk to people or whatever, because they said the pictures don't have any sound with them, so you can put it to music and let everybody see it. But they've got some pretty innovative ideas. They said one of the more interesting things they think they could do some business in Batavia, and I'm sure this is they're going to have one of the theaters set up so it can be kind of a party reception area after a funeral. So that if you want to take everybody who's coming to a funeral and feed them or have a little get-together, that will be one of the services they will be offering. So you're about to see this movie theater that's been in Batavia for a long time kind of change its way of what it's all about, because they're going to have this going on. Okay, moving quickly out to East Wilson Street, we got a couple of businesses out there. We got Kings and Queens Children's Academy, and we also have the new pizza restaurant in, I can't read.
Louis Angelo.
Yeah, Louis Angelo's. I was there to cut the ribbon. So they're out there on East Wilson Street, and you know, they're very nice places, and they're just kind of off the screen here as far as the rest of the business area, but I wanted to include them in the program. Next slide. Okay, then another one that's kind of coming back in really a roaring form is K. Hollis Jewelers. They have bought the old Pal Joey's restaurant, and now they're moving in a women's clothing store and I guess a little bar-like thing where they're going to entertain people with wines and whatever. And it will be, I'm sure, they're going to have a ribbon cutting here in a few weeks. This will be a very nice addition to have to Randall Road area in Batavia. But it's big, and it would be one of the larger ones, jewelry stores in the area. So we're very, very pleased to have them out there and wish them the very best. Next slide. Okay, another one that's coming is Chicken Salad Chick. And that's going to be located on Randall Road right to the north of the AM/PM gas station at McKee and Randall. It's right there kind of in front of Menards. If you go by there now, they got this big sign on the front of it. And I've met with them. They have a very interesting idea. They have a really nice menu. I've got a copy of the menu. And they have, their specialty is chicken salad. And they sell this chicken salad in various ways. They put some of it has some vegetable in it, some doesn't, et cetera, So they tell me they're going to expand now, and they're also going to sell a turkey salad. So they're going to have chicken salad and turkey salad. But those are things that are coming, and this one is in a space where a couple restaurants went in and didn't quite make it. But again, this is kind of a new idea. And talking to some of these folks, you know, why did you choose Batavia? And several of them mentioned to me that they really wanted to get into Batavia because of the fact that this Fermilab thing is happening, and that's going to add another 1,800 plus employees, and they think there's going to be a bunch of those folks that are going to want to go out and have lunch someplace, so they want to set themselves up for having people come out over there and eat. Let's go to the next one. Okay, another one that's coming is Mocha Coffee, and they're going on Independence Drive at Main Street, basically right behind the Shell gas station that is at Main and Randall. And as you may already know, or may be a customer, they're down in North Aurora on Route 31, about a block south of Butterfield Road. And so the village of North Aurora tells me, not great business, but they have a traffic problem every morning because they line you up to get into your coffee and they start going out onto the street. So one of the things they liked about this Batavia location, it wasn't, the site is laid out so you really couldn't build a building on much of the site, but you could have a long extending driveway. So that's what we're doing in Batavia. You come in, I think, on Wilson, but you won't get your coffee till you get up to Main Street because there'll be, and I guess they move them through quickly. But their coffee is really good, and they've got the whole fan club of people that like their coffee. Next slide. Okay, then you're seeing a lot of construction on Main Street, right at near Randall Road, just to the west of the, to the east of the car wash. And that used to be a small gas station in there that was about 1,200 square feet. Now there's a new building. That building was torn down and the gas tanks were taken out. Now they're building a new, next slide here, new location. This is going to be Batavia's own Casey's. And this building's over 5,000 square feet. Casey's tells me they sell gas, but that's kind of where they stop in the car business. They're more into the convenience center, and they really pride themselves on their pizza and their donuts. And so that's coming to Batavia as soon as they get this building built. I've talked to the mayor in Glenelg, and they've already got theirs up, and he says they're doing bonkers business over there. He says, especially the pizza. So we'll see what we get going there in that one. Okay, this is a picture of the parking lot in front of the Jewel in Batavia. As many of you have probably seen over the years, there's a windmill sitting out there on their front. Well, we have now been given an application for a building permit from another chicken restaurant that has bought this particular piece of ground, and they are going to build Dave's Hot Chicken. Now, if you want to taste it, there is one very nearby in Naperville at 95th Street and Route 59, and they have a very unique manner of making chicken. They insert into the chicken after you order it the type of sauce that you want. Do you want barbecue sauce or do you want a tomato sauce? There's all kinds of sauces that they shoot into the chicken pieces, and that's what their claim to fame is. I went over and tried it; it was very good. But they are coming to Batavia, I guess, and so you'll be seeing some construction right there in the parking lot at the far east side of the Jewel parking lot. There's a couple lots that were platted there when the whole thing was laid out. Nobody's ever used them till now, but we are getting those. Okay, another one. This is the old Denny's restaurant that's right on Randall Road, right next to Portillo's out there. And I'm going to a meeting tomorrow with some folks that are coming up because they represent a company that has bought this building, and they're going to tear it down. And the building's going to be totally removed, and they're going to build a very unique car wash on this location. And I got the mayor of St. Charles has also been invited to the same meeting because they've bought some ground out on East Main Street in St. Charles, and I guess they're going to do the same thing there. So we're getting another car wash in town, so you have that to look forward to. Then we have another restaurant coming in the form of the Culvers, and they're full steam ahead. If you've been out there, they're right there almost in front of the Menard store. They're just to the south of the Douglas Fort, south of Douglas Fort covering. Menard or Culver's called and said they wanted to come down for a meeting with Laura and I, so they came down and they ended up staying about an hour and 45 minutes. And the woman that owns this franchise has already bought 2 other sites in Illinois, and she's originally from Madison, Wisconsin, and she's friends with the Culver brothers. When they built their restaurants, she had inherited some money, so she bought in and gave them the money to invest in other restaurants, and then she started investing herself. I think she told us she owns 6 or 7 Culvers now, but she owns 3 in Illinois. They're going to own this one, and then she owns one in Downers Grove, which is right in front of the tollway office on Ogden Avenue, and she owns another one up in Skokie on part of the old Orchard Shopping Center. And so her one question was, when she came in, is it true Batavia has 6 senior living communities? And we said, yes it is, including this one. She said, that's all I need to know. She says, Culver's corporate strategy is that we are the senior citizens fast food restaurant of America, because we offer 4 soups and 5 salads every day. And then we also try to be the grandparents' restaurant of America, because the grandparents like to take the grandchildren to lunch or dinner, and they can have the soup, and the grandparents can have the soup and the salad, and the kids can have the hamburgers and french fries. So that will be here. They hope to open by March, they tell us. Then right next door to it is the old TGI Fridays, which is now going to be, it's been remodeled into Douglas Floor Covering, and they closed up their stores in North Aurora and Geneva and combined it all into this one, and then sold the south parking lot to Culver's. But we're very happy to have them in town. They're a pretty busy place, and they generate a lot of sales tax, so I'm very pleased to have them in town. Next picture. Then we have the First State Bank has relocated itself again this year to yet a 3rd location in Batavia. If you trace them, they've kind of moved around town and been to 2 or 3 different locations, but I think now they're out on Randall Road, and they're in another old bank that was made for them with drive-through windows, so they're pretty happy to be there, but they're one of our newer ones this year. Next slide. Okay, then this one, we took an aerial of this one, so this is where right now the Raising Cane is on the corner at McKee and Randall, but now next to it has been built Starbucks and Chipotle, and now Bell Tire is building a store at the far south end of their property. So they will be there, and this is the site of the old Avenue Motors sales location, which has now been taken away for some time. So we've got some interesting business here. I'm amazed they go by that Starbucks, and the amount of cars already sitting in the drive-through lane there is really significant. Let's go to the next one. Then across the street, our big boys are all remodeling this year. Walmart is right now in the process of remodeling, and they tell us they haven't called us yet or told, I don't know if the chamber's been invited, but they got big signs up that say they're gonna cut the ribbon on November 19th. But they haven't invited me yet, so maybe they're not. But anyway, they've done a lot of work in that store. Their parking lot is half full of construction materials, because they're doing it. Then let's go to the next one. Then down the street, Target just got basically through of doing a major remodeling of themselves in there. And let's go to the next one. Then we get to the infamous Sam's Club. And as all of you know, they didn't give us any warning and just called us one morning and said, well, we've made a corporate decision, we're shutting all the stores down today, except for the newest ones we just opened in Elgin and in Montgomery, but all the rest of them in the area, Naperville, Wheeling, went up by Arlington Heights. We're shutting them all down today because, and I guess the final word was they felt that they had made a bad corporate decision in the fact that they built the Sam's Club right next to the Walmart, and they were competing against themselves. So they decided to get out of that business. And so they said, we're going to put the building up for sale, and it has been sold to retail investors. And so we've been going back and forth with a lot of different ideas of what they wanted to do. First they thought they wanted to remodel it and put apartments in there, and we said, no, this is zone retail, we're not changing that. So then at the end of the day, the county got in a real panic about the COVID situation. So we let them move in there. They now have given us an award because that site ended up being the second busiest COVID shot place in the Chicago area. And so they gave us an award for that because they shot 114,000 people in that building. So that's quite a bit. So they're now out of that. So now we're talking to some other folks about some types of retail. I don't want to say because I don't want to get rumors started and then not have it happen because nothing's been signed. But we do have discussions. In the meantime, in the moment, all the school buses are parked out there in the lot, and people thought, gee, what's happening here? Well, that's just a total temporary thing because the school bus is where they are now is having their parking lot totally repaved, and they couldn't park their buses on this new area for a couple of weeks. So I would suggest within a week or two that buses will all be gone and that fence will be out of there, and something else probably will be happening. Let's go to the next slide. No, we don't go back for a minute. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, this is a picture of the trees that are out on Mill Street, right out to the south of the Sam's Club. And back in 1954-55, Batavia got struck by what they called the Dutch elm disease. And we lost thousands of trees by this disease. And so they formed a special commission, of which everybody that's on it is now dead with the exception of one person, and that's Frank Sapp, who's currently our city arborist, but he's quite elderly. But they came up with ideas of planting new trees in Batavia. And one of the things that had happened was in 1855, when they built the original Bellevue on South Jefferson Street, they made the front entryway Union Avenue, because this was right before the Civil War started, and they were trying to make a statement. And then they planted the same type of tree on both sides of Union Avenue from Batavia Avenue up to the lawn of Bellevue. And for years and years and years, that was a really pride of Batavia. That was the one street in this fall had all these colored leaves, and it was people would come down and take pictures. Well, now most of those trees have all died. Most of them were elms, and they all died. And so they've gone back and have tried to replace it. But the Batavia Tree Commission came up with the idea that we should recreate the Elm Street idea in other places in town. So when Sam's Club originally came in, we said, well, we want you to plant on the Mill Street to the south of you, all these trees of this same style. So I think most of the leaves have fallen today by now, but if you went out there a couple weeks ago, it was really beautiful. I mean, it stood out. So we've now introduced this idea to several other developers about planting these rows of trees in Batavia, and I think that that is going to be coming to effect. So that's another new idea that we've got kicking around here. I'm almost done here. Here's the intersection I just talked about earlier that the county and the state are working on. They told me as recent as yesterday that they've pretty much have decided on the design. Now there's going to have to be some acquisition of property on the other side of Fabian over by Campana. They got to take some right-of-way over there to kind of straighten this curve out. The problem with this is down here in the corner, they got a curve right in the middle of the intersection. And its accident history in Batavia is probably the #1 as far as the number of accidents we have. We've had a couple fatalities and whatever have you, so but it's not anything we, the city, have any control over. It's all either by the state or the county. So they're all in agreement that something needs to be done, so I'm optimistic that is going to happen. So I want to just close here by paying a few moments of tribute to my fellow governments. And one of them, certainly I want to start with, is the Batavia Park District and what they've done to the Batavia Quarry. I mean, that is, talk about something that's historic in Batavia. I mean, that thing goes back to the Great Chicago Fire when they mined it out to move all the stone out of there on the railroad track that was right there where the bike trail now is, that they could mine all that stone out of there and go back and rebuild the city of Chicago. So that really is a very, it'll be getting one of our plaques down there one of these days that will tell the story of what really happened there. But the Park District has gone in there in the last couple of years and redid all the parking lots and the pools and made it nicer and safer. And they took the old refreshment stand and made that an area where you could rent it and have private parties. And I mean, the current board and staff really have done some very insightful and innovative things that really have been, not only here but other places. But I wanted to cite the quarry today because it's really, I've had some of these old classmates of mine from 50 years ago come back and say, Jeff, can't believe what they did to the quarry. I wish they had done this when I was here, you know. So really, let's go to the next one. Then the next one I want to pay tribute to is our friends at the school district. And they've done some, they've got some innovative ideas that they're out in the community now trying to sell to the town about things they want to do with the schools. And I'm sure, they'll be doing some stuff that will really, Batavia schools, if you talk to some of these people who are moving in, and I've had a couple of people show up that are going to be part of this Fermilab thing, and they don't live here now, but they're looking where they're going to move. And the one thing they're asking a lot of questions about, are these test scores and these stuff that we see in the computer about the school, are these real solid numbers? And I say, yes, it is. Well, this is probably the town then we want to be in because of the test scores and the numbers and everything else that's out there. But one of the things I just wanted to pay tribute to is what they've done out at the high school athletic field over the last couple of years. And this year, I guess we tore down the bleachers and put up some new lights. But prior to that, we put turf grass in. And I had nothing really to do with it other than the fact that I represent Kane County on the suburban bus board, and I have to go to a meeting once a month in Arlington Heights. And when I went, I've been in there now a long time, and when I get there one day, they appointed a new member. They're all mayors, and Brad Stevens, who was the mayor of Rosemont, gets brought in, and we sit alphabetically, so I'm Shelkey, he's Stevens, so he's my seatmate. So Brad and I got to be real good friends. So one day Brad says to me, hey, I think I'm going to do some stuff out there in Batavia. Ramblin' Ray Stevens has got me donating some stuff here where I'm going to let Batavia's football program have this money, or the Bulldog Boosters or whatever, and they're going to raise some money and I'm gonna donate my family's skybox for some actor or some performers coming up. And we're gonna see how much you can get. I got 3 nights of this I'm going to donate. And I'm led to believe that Ramblin' Ray went on the radio and auctioned off these 3 nights, and he got between $25,000 and $35,000 a night for those boxes. And then Stevens gave him 250 tickets for other things that were happening at the Allstate Arena, and I think Stevens raised another 100,000 plus. So he came in, and the Bulldog Boosters had already raised, I think, a couple 100,000. And here comes Rosemont. So when they had the groundbreaking for this, I asked if I could bring Mayor Stevens out, and he said, oh, absolutely. So I invited him to come, and he'd only come under the condition that he not be introduced and nobody knew who he was. So they had me up there breaking ground, and he stood off in the back, and he was smiling ear to ear, but he didn't want anybody to know that he probably provided several $100,000 of that money that helped pay for that turf grass. So, I mean, again, I think that to the school board's credit, you know, that's a pretty expensive thing, and I can see where a lot of people would say, well, that's taxpayer money. Well, that one isn't. That was all donated by people like Ramblin' Ray, Stevens, getting Rosemont to donate the money and everything else. And that's a story till today that not a lot of people know about, but I was dragged into the middle of this thing and every month I'd have to give Mayor Stevens a report as to how we were doing on raising that money. So that's something I think we should all be very proud of and acknowledge the school board and the school administration for coming up with some of these ideas that are really unique and supportive of Batavia, but they aren't costing the taxpayer a lot. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, this is our friends at the Batavia Library. And one of the things I wanted to note here, they have a new business in there called the Flyleaf, and everybody's raving about how good the food is. So if you haven't been there yet, you need to stop in. In the meantime, the library is continuing to maintain their high standards, and I think they just put in new windows and did a bunch of interior renovation and restoration. So again, another great group that's working very well for Batavia and for its future, and not probably spending a lot of money. I can tell you a little story about the library. I was a big support. I was an old friend through the family of Miriam Johnson, who was a librarian there forever. And so I knew her very well, and her great dream was to build a new library in Batavia. So when this whole idea came up, the library tried several times to put referendums through, and they got beat. And so finally they came up with the big job, the big idea of having the big one. And so I met with them a few times, and we talked about, you know, who you should talk to and whatever have you. And I said, you know, I think this is going to be kind of a rough situation, but if I was you, I would focus on the senior citizens, because I think you may find support there. And so the night of the referendum for the library was losing for most of the night till they got to the precincts where the senior citizens lived. And all of a sudden, at the end of the night, I think the referendum won by maybe 135 votes or something like that. And it was all predicated, I think, is the homestead in the Batavia Library? Yeah, this was the big catch. This is the political muscle that put the library on the street. And another positive thing to say about the homestead, that they were the ones that really helped sell it. I remember River Rain was also another one that was a big supporter, so there was a lot of good things done. And I'm down to my very last slides. I don't know if I ran over, I don't know what. Anyway, I had a lot to say. This is going back to our friends at the Park District, and on the 12th, is it the 12th? At 10 a.m., they're going to have a dedication down on South River Street of all the land that backs up to, not all, I guess you don't own one house down there yet. You got them all?
Four.
4 houses? So you just got the big one that's coming. You're tearing one down in the next few days? Okay. Anyway, Phil Elstrom had this dream in his life that he wanted to see that made into a big park there because it was such a pretty area. And so when he died, he left money in his will, quite a bit of money, to the Batavia Park District, with the idea that that money would be used to acquire the remaining properties on South River Street. And so they've been quietly doing that, to the Park District Board's credit. And the greenhouse that's down there is going to be the one that's the one I think you're taking down here pretty quick. And that will really open up a big area, and they're gonna have a plaque, and I guess we're calling this the Phil Elstrom Greenway? Is that what it's named? Yeah. So anyway, I'm very pleased to see that, because that was what his dream was, to have that done. And to see that, you know, people can leave governments in Batavia money and they do what they're supposed to do with the money. So that's, and there's been a few cases, I think, in other towns where that hasn't been the case, so Batavia should be done. So, and this is my final slide. I thank you all for your attention and today, and as I say, I have a lot to talk about. I apologize, some of it I should have talked about more detail, but I knew I was under time constraints, so I didn't want to do too much. But that's what's happened this year, and it's a good report, in my opinion, that we've got a lot to be proud of, and we got, you know, governments that are working together, and many members of my city council and staff are here, and I just want to publicly acknowledge them for the outstanding job that they do. And the city council really is a government that I work with. They really put their heart and soul into it, and we meet every other Tuesday night, and that's a committee of the whole meeting that I don't run. That's run by Al Wolf, who's the mayor pro tem as an alderman. And that's the night when they get together, and then they really talk about stuff, you know, what's the real reason why we're doing this, or who's mad at this, or whatever have you. And so then at the city council meeting, we kind of run through it, because we've already discussed it in a large degree, and we've got everything locked up. So we got all the governments in Batavia, I think, are running well. We don't have a bunch of nut wackos, and I go to other cities, other places in the region, because I'm chairman of the mayor's group in Chicago, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of other towns that have real problems going with the governments not getting along, and the school board not liking the city, and vice versa, and the park board doing this, and they're on land that the city wants. And I mean, there's some really places that they're not even speaking, I don't think. And in Batavia, we all seem to get along, and we have some arguments every now and then, but we get over it and get on. So thanks to all of you everything you're doing that makes Batavia such a good place for people to move. And that's why we got 500 new living units being built in Batavia right now, is that I think the world sees this as a good place to be, and you make an investment here, you'll keep your investment in your pocket as far as the strength of it. So, thank you.
In Batavia, our nut job wackos just all get along. Makes it wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for covering all the wonderful things that are going on in town. Keeps us excited, and we know we all just love our Batavia town. So thank you for reviewing that. I do want to say Mayor serves as a role model for compassion and service, and always striving to make Batavia a better place. I encourage you all to follow in his lead and get involved in our community. Volunteer and participate in making of Batavia a wonderful place to live. A couple of things before we wrap up here. I just want to mention that the Batavia Women in Business is hosting their annual holiday luncheon on Tuesday, December 13th at Enticing Cuisine. Each year, the Chamber's BWIP Committee collects items and funds for the Batavia Toy Access Drive and Batavia United Way Adopt a Family. Please drop off new, unopened toys and gift cards at the Batavia Chamber to support families that need our help this season. I'm thrilled to announce that the Chamber is again doubling the value of Chamber bucks. We are donating $5,000 of holiday bucks to the community. The holiday bucks are the bonus bucks that expire in March 31st of 2023, so it is an initiative from the Chamber to inject $10,000 into the economy. There's a $50 cap of bonus holiday bucks per residence. But when you shop local, you support local, you help the entire community strengthen our local economy. We can all help by shopping local and giving local. So I want to wrap up. Thank you very much for coming today. I enjoyed seeing you all. enjoy this beautiful fall day in Batavia. Thank you.